Hello there, this is Sylvie of the website sylviesoul.com. It's a website designed for aspiring writers to give them the tips and tools they need to achieve their dreams. So if you don't know much about me, I'm a writer. I've been writing for well over a decade. I'd argue about 20 years. About half of those years, however, I did take the time to write fan fiction. I was more of a fan fiction writer. So that's where my beginning is, and I'm hoping to reach an audience of people who are fanfic writers. Maybe they're not ready to make the leap into writing their own works, or maybe they're just starting out in fan fiction and they just want more advice on, how to get their work out there a bit better. So I decided to make this video today to talk about 3 places in particular where writers can house their writing if they're into fan fiction writing. Before I go any further, I would just like to say if you enjoy the content that I make, please click the subscribe button or hit that bell to be notified whenever I make a new video. That would be very helpful, so thank you. Anyway, let's get started. So the 3 main places that you can house fan fiction are fanfiction.net, Archive of Our Own, and Wattpad. I'll go over all three in length. I'll talk about the pros and cons and just my personal experience with all 3 of these places. And if you hang on until the end, I might give you a few bonus ones that you might be worth considering. So the first one I want to talk about is fanfiction.net. Fanfiction.net has been around for a while. I think fanfiction.net has been around for well over 20, maybe 25 years. It's old. It has a very Web 1.105. It's not very user-friendly, but the fact of the matter remains, it houses the largest amount of fan fiction on the internet. Anything you can conceivably think of, you'll find on fanfiction.net. There is just, it's huge. It's a huge library, which is both a pro and a con. Pro, in that it's easy to find a topic you may be looking for, even fan fiction crossovers. They have a section where they can categorize 2 different properties combined as one, and that's very convenient. But the con is, especially if you write for a popular property, it's really hard to find works. The curation system's a bit wonky. If you've written something, say back in the early 2000s, it's buried pages away, and most people aren't going to sit and methodically go through pages unless they have the title and they can search the name of the fanfic. So I would say it's not really user-friendly, both for the person who is reading it and searching for fanfic, and also for people who are uploading fanfics onto the site. A little backstory: when I first started writing fanfiction, I actually wrote for a website. It's a now long defunct website called Gerald's Gateway of Tales. But the point I'm trying to make was, how I used to write fan fiction is I used to just write it in email and essentially email it to the webmaster there. And that's because I didn't have a computer. I had this weird thing called web TV, so it allowed me to send emails and surf the web, but it didn't have the same abilities as a traditional PC. So I couldn't very well write something on a Word document and then upload it onto a site. And so when I first started using fanfiction.net initially, I could only read. I didn't have the capabilities to take a Word document and then upload it and then go through this methodical. There's so many steps when you do it on fanfiction.net, and it's a little unuser-friendly, and then they're always wanting to update you on the rules, so every so often when you update something, they'd have to make you read something and check. So it's a long, cumbersome process, not at all user-friendly for newcomers. So yeah, the pros, just to recap, the pros of fanfiction.net, lots of different fan fictions. You'll find anything you could possibly be looking for in fanfiction.net. The con is it's not very user-friendly. Moving on, the second site I'd like to talk about is Archive of Our Own. Archive of Our Own's been around for quite a bit. It's a recent winner of a Hugo Award, apparently, for its curation by an all-women's development team. I think I'm saying that right. If you look into it, it was nominated and it won for an award in transformative works. And it's kind of it's better than fanfiction.net in that you're able to categorize works a little bit better. And that I mean, if you write a fan fiction, you can put appropriate tags. So say if you write My Little Pony fan fiction, you can put, hashtag MLP, hashtag it's about Rainbow Dash, da da da, whatever. You can sort of categorize what the fan fiction is about so that it's easier to find through their search engine. And I think that's one of Archive of Our Own's major strengths, is this categorization process. In terms of ease of uploading, it's fairly simple. You just choose which categories you want, if it's mature, if it's what characters it's about. As a tangent, I tend to get a bit confused with how to categorize my works when I post them on Archive of Our Own. They have different settings of, like, there's no general rating and it's mature, or anyway, like, I tend to get confused because I don't tend to write mature works. So I would say, well, I don't have any sort of archive warnings on my fanfic, so I guess I'll just put it as no. And I think there's some confusion because if there is no distinction, then your work has to go through a bit of gatekeeping where it's like, warning, this is not ranked, or this is not for kids, so you have to either proceed or go back. And all my stuff is pretty PG. So I think I need to read, or maybe they need to clarify the categories a bit better on what is ranked as a mature work and a teen work and a work that's suitable for all audiences. That's probably a personal gripe, but something to consider. The customization of boxing everything is very it's good, but I think there's a bit of a learning curve with it. One of the pros of Archive of Our Own, which I forgot to mention with fanfiction.net, is that you are allowed to comment. In fanfiction.net, you can leave comments on people's work. You could also favorite their work. You could also favorite an author if you like their work and follow their work. You can do the same on Archive of Our Own. Actually, another benefit of Archive of Our Own is that you're allowed to leave kudos or like a story. You can't really do that on fanfiction.net. I mean, you could favorite something, but with Archive of Our Own, there's just a kind of a general validation option you could do to say, hey, I like this. Maybe you don't have the time, or maybe you don't care to leave a comment, but you could leave kudos on a work from Archive of Our Own. I put my works on all three of the different fan fiction sites that I will mention, but I tend to see a lot more people leaving kudos or more validation on the later ones, Wattpad and Archive of Our Own. So it's good. I don't really love posting on Archive of Our Own, and I think it's just a preference. And I'll probably go into this more when I talk about Wattpad, but I think the biggest strength of Archive of Our Own is because it's not as vast as fanfiction.net. If you have a particular property or show that you write for, I think it has a chance of getting better exposure just because it's not such a massive library like fanfiction.net. Case in point, I don't think there's that many Hey Arnold stories on Archive of Our Own compared to, say, Wattpad and fanfiction.net. So I do tend to get a lot of kudos and recognition on those pages. But that said, I still don't think it's the best avenue for leaving my fanfics. The general consensus I get is a lot of people like to post. A lot of people like to post mature content on Archive of Our Own. I think every other fanfic, if I were to search, it has a mature rating, or there's some really there's stuff inappropriate for kids. And I guess that'd be another pro if you're someone who likes to write that kind of stuff, because I know fanfiction.net doesn't allow for mature adult fanfics on their site. I think they have a separate site entirely just for mature lemon fanfics. But Archive of Our Own kind of lumps it all together. So you can write something kid-friendly, and you can write something that's like straight up like adult fiction. So yeah, kind of rambly, but that's my thoughts on Archive of Our Own. Then the last site I want to talk about is Wattpad. Wattpad's the most recent site of the three, and it's housed right here in my hometown of Toronto, Canada. Hooray! So it's its popularity has definitely grown. It has a very, very strong, robust worldwide presence. In fact, I think it's extremely popular in, say, the Philippines as well as here in North America. And it just houses a whole diverse range of fan fiction. I think one of the biggest pros about Wattpad is just how user-friendly and accessible it is compared to fanfiction.net and Archive of Our Own. Wattpad's very mobile intuitive, very mobile friendly, so you can download an app and you can read stories just really easily on your phone or on a desktop. So that makes it, I think, more accessible for both readers as well as creators, because they can do both using the Wattpad app. They also hold a lot of contests. They've been evolving their strategy, but they're very business focused. They do a lot of contests. They do a lot of things to promote new writers. In fact, they've opened this new branch where they've been taking stories from Wattpad and making them into original books. I think the biggest person I could think of, and I might have mentioned in a previous video, is Anna Todd. Anna Todd wrote the After series, and it's super popular, and now it's going to become a movie, or actually it's already been a movie, and it's had a sequel this year in 2020. So yeah, it's a good place for not only fan fiction, but also original content. And that seems to be where all the action is right now. If people are hoping to become popular through their writing, they're not going to Archive of Their Own or fanfiction.net. They're going to Wattpad, because I feel like most of the guys are there nowadays. I'd say the biggest con about Wattpad is just the type of content that they'll allow. I feel like they're the most lax of all three websites. Referring back to fanfiction.net, early on, I wrote a fanfic that was in script format and posted it on the site, and it was actually deleted after about 2 weeks because they do not allow script formatted fanfics on the site. Yeah, so you could do whatever you want on Wattpad in contrast. In fact, like a lot of fanfics, if I were to Google Hey Arnold, some of the ones in the top 50 aren't even fanfics at all. They're just like fan art, like pictures of fan art spread over different chapters. So there's not a lot of gatekeeping on what's allowed on the site, which is a bit, I don't know. It should be accessible to all, so I'm not complaining too much. But if you're looking to read something, it's you got to sift through a lot of not so good content. In fact, I don't know if this is something that's evolved over the years or has always been prevalent. Maybe I just haven't seen it that much on Archive of Our Own and fanfiction.net, but there's a lot of characters from a different property type fanfics. For example, someone might write a fanfic where you're the main character and your love interest is Elsa from Frozen. I've seen that a ton on Wattpad, and I find it kind of weird because I've never noticed it before, but apparently there's an audience for it. Yeah, so if that's your bread and butter, if that's the type of fanfics you like to write or read, have at it. Maybe I'm just old school and I'm just not in the know for the different types of tropes. But Wattpad has any type of trope you need, and everything's covered. And yeah, another pro is they allow adult as well as PG rated stuff on the site. So I personally like Wattpad the most now because I can curate. If I make a mistake on a chapter, I can just go and change it with ease. Unlike with fanfiction.net, is like once you write that chapter, you have to basically rewrite the chapter and then re-upload it into their system, and it's just this whole to-do. But Wattpad's very user-friendly. It gets a lot of eyes on it, and it's just a good place to share work and to read work. So of the three, I would recommend Wattpad. I don't know how long this will last for. There's always new different sites coming out that house and share fan fiction. And just to talk about a few others, like quick honorable mentions, Tumblr's a place where I've seen fan fiction. I've even posted some work in progresses there when I was working on some stories that are now on Wattpad in their finished form. It's just insane trying to navigate Tumblr. It's not really intended for reading fanfics, but you could put fanfiction on Tumblr. LiveJournal is one I have never used, but I know there's some people who put their stuff on LiveJournal. I guess that's more of an old school alternative to people who didn't want to use fanfiction.net back in the day. There's also ones like FicWad, and I should have some other ones. There's some other not so popular fanfiction sites that you could house your work. If you're lucky enough to be in a popular genre, I think there's actual websites devoted to certain types of fanfiction, like Harry Potter or Twilight or what have you. So you have that access as well. Me, I write about Hey Arnold, so there's not exactly a Hey Arnold fanfiction site. But yeah, so I understand this is kind of a rambly video, but just to the Cribs Note version of, there's 3 main sites. You can do fanfiction.net, you can do Archive of Our Own, and you can do Wattpad to house your writing. My personal preference is Wattpad, but you have the ability to share and read from all 3 sources. So I hope that answered any questions someone might have on where they can post or read fan fiction. If you like this content, please be sure to, like it. If you don't, maybe leave a comment and say if I had missed any places that people house fanfic, because I know I did. And yeah, once again, if you like this content, please subscribe or hit the bell and visit my site, sylviesoul.com. So that's it for now. Thanks. Bye.